At its peak a few years ago, on any given day, there was 500,000 people that were in jail pre-trial. Cash bail is quite literally just the idea. Give money to secure your freedom. It is shortly after you've been arrested. So at this point, it's just a very thin accusation. Cop's word versus your word, basically. Unless you're rich enough to afford to pay this, you're going to be in a cell before anything has really been proven against you.
So it doesn't even make sense making people pay for their freedom who have not even been found guilty of anything yet.
1 day in jail, 2 hours in jail in a lockup is too much. People are dying in lockup. People are dying in our jails in Massachusetts, right? And the sheriffs and their COs and their medical staff are not being held accountable. People shouldn't have to suffer harm like that because they cannot afford cash bail.
I will stand for you. Could you stand for me? Everybody deserves to be free.
Welcome both of our amazing guests who are on FreeHer podcast today, talking about a really important issue that all three of us really have fought for, thought about, worked on for a very long time. I want to first introduce Jasmine Borges, is the Director of Organizing at the Massachusetts Bail Fund, where she leads advocacy and community mobilization to challenge the harms caused by pretrial detention. Don't worry, we're going to get into all of what this all means, and support people impacted by the criminal legal system. As a formerly incarcerated Latinx woman, Jasmine brings both lived experience and a deep commitment to the fight for collective liberation. Since coming home, she has worked to ensure that all people are recognized as deserving of freedom, love, safety, housing, meaningful employment, healthcare, and peace, regardless of race, class, gender, or the mistakes we make when we are under-resourced and misunderstood. Jasmine, it is such an honor. You are one of our comrades in this space.
Thank you so much.
It is just such an honor to have you on the FreeHer podcast talking about this issue that you are such an incredible leader in. Rena, our dear friend over at Forward US, an organization, a think tank that we have been very happy to have worked with for a really long time. Rena is an attorney. Kafa Johnson, Rena Kafa Johnson, let me say your whole name out, is an attorney, organizer, and campaigner dedicated to dismantling systems of state violence and white supremacy. As Vice President of National Initiatives at Forward US, Rena leads political and narrative campaigns to reform our criminal, legal, and immigration systems. Prior to this role, she organized women with incarcerated loved ones towards transformative abolitionist policy campaigns as the Director of Campaigns and Advocacy at our beloved, under Gina Clayton, Essie Justice Group. Rena began her career as a juvenile public defender. Thank you for that work. My favorite people on the planet, public defenders, and reentry attorney representing incarcerated and formerly incarcerated New York City youth. And I can go on and on. She's just a phenomenal person, abolitionist lawyer, all of these things. And, you know, two of my favorite people here to talk about these very important issues. So let's jump right in. And first, I want to lift up, Jazz, I want to lift you up a little bit, Jasmine, because, you know, for those of us who are formerly incarcerated women, it's hard sometimes to always be the ones like, oh, you're the expert. I need you to come on and I need you to talk about stuff. And as tiring as it gets, I just want to say thank you again, because we continue to jump in and to use our voices. And, you know, it's a lot sometimes. But I want to say, as an elder in this space, I'm really proud of you, Jazz. I'm really proud of the work that you've done to move our efforts forward. From the day that you walked out, came home, pulled yourself together, you've been leading this fight around bail reform and other issues. You use your voice on stopping the new women's prison in Massachusetts, really important issue, no-cost calls, anything that is relevant to, ending incarceration of women and girls. And I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate you, Andrea, and all the work that you've done, and just being a leader in this space and an elder in this space. And thank you for having me today. I do think that, yeah, sometimes it gets a little bit exhausting having to be the expert at the table. But I think when I was incarcerated, not that I know when I was incarcerated, I was concerned around not even being invited to the table, right? Not even having space. And luckily, I found Families for Justice's Healing in the National Council, and was given space. Some of the advocacy and the voice I've lent my voice to is around advocacy around parole reform, bail reform, stopping the new women's prison, right? No cost calls, and also fighting for currently incarcerated women to be able to be part of the legislative process.
Yeah.
And ensuring that they have a voice now, right?
How many women did you guys bring in recently? You just 25 incarcerated women for the first time in history came into a Massachusetts legislative hearing to say what they wanted and be very clear about what they do not want.
Yeah. And what they said is that they don't want a new prison. What they want is to come home, and for the leadership to utilize those mechanisms that exist, such as clemency, commutations, medical parole, elder parole, regular parole, classification, to step down, right? Use those mechanisms that are underutilized to bring our sisters home, to bring our people home. And instead of building more prisons and more jails, and in finding more mechanisms to incarcerate our people at pretrial, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rena, we met a while ago. Forward U and your work currently is on Forward US, a phenomenal think tank. But tell us, what is Forward US? Why do you guys exist? What are you doing? I know what it is. We work with you guys. What is it though?
So Forward.us is kind of a political and advocacy hub. We also do work, think tanky type work, but the organization kind of exists to push campaigns, legislative campaigns, political campaigns to fix our extremely messed up immigration and criminal legal reform system. So we do immigration work that happens at the state and the federal level to make a pathway to citizenship for many, many more people than it exists now. As we know, our immigration system is horrific, and everybody wants to talk about doing things the right way, or, whatever hullabaloo people say about it. But the reality is it's extremely difficult for any immigrant to get any pathway to status and be able to kind of live the lives of dignity that they deserve as part of this country. And then we do the same similar work on the criminal legal system side. That's where I do most of my work. And that's both state and federal campaigns to shrink our jail and prison populations. There's a lot of different ways to look at and get at criminal justice reform. We're very, very focused on more and more people free, fewer and fewer people in jail and prison. And that we've done work in, 10 states in the US, and we also do work on the national level politically to try to kind of both push actual legislation to make that happen, but also kind of figure out how we can improve the narrative and political conditions so that all the amazing people doing work on the ground, like you, like Jasmine, like so many of our partners, have slightly less of an uphill battle in their work to free people.
When you listen, you're coming out of Harvard Law School, you're an alum of Harvard. How are you feeling now with all of the things that are happening? We kind of look to Harvard to, they were holding out, and then things kind of took a nosedive a little bit. Are you really happy? I mean, we love the fact that you exist over at Forward US, but personally, the choice that you've made to do the work that you do at Forward.us, you could have done anything. What does that mean to you?
I was always going to I'm from kind of a legacy of people who were taught that it is our job on this earth to look out for our people, to alleviate suffering for our people and other people. My grandmother was kind of a minister and a theologian and spent her life organizing in the ecumenical movement for the freedom of Black people, first kind of doing a lot of work around trying to dismantle apartheid in South Africa, and then doing a lot of work to kind of uncover and challenge racism in the clergy and in the World Council of Churches. My grandfather is from Sierra Leone. He kind of grew up and spent his career in kind of a decolonial struggle and making sure that the people in his country kind of had what they needed. So I always kind of felt like no matter what I did, I had to contribute to that legacy and fight for the freedom of people. I think was politicized later in life and in the kind of way that got me to where I am now as an abolitionist. I think I started and was like, I want to be a Supreme Court justice. I want to work at the DOJ and do XYZ. And I think it was actually in law school at Harvard that I was like, oh, no. Like all of those are part of the structures that we need to kind of tear down, and not necessarily the path to our freedom and liberation. And I was in law school when Mike Brown was murdered. And that was also a very big part of kind of my choice. I kind of knew like, I want to contribute to like the liberation of Black people. But it was in that moment that I was really starting to connect the dots of things I'd learned in my childhood and things I saw through the system that for me, I was like, oh, the fight of my lifetime for Black people is the like prison industrial complex. It's police, it's jails, it's prisons. So I kind of felt like I want to get people out of there. And of course, it's like a lot of my peers at Harvard obviously went there to go to law firms and make a lot of money, and kind of be part of the problem, not necessarily part of the solution. But I'm really grateful that I went there, even though I spent the entire time just like tussling. I was tussling with the administration. Right. I was tussling with the professors. Yeah. I was tussling with my classmates, but it was actually really helpful. I say that Harvard is the belly of the beast. And I think learning the law there made me realize that like the law is just largely a structure to justify the status quo, not transform the status quo. And to me, if you want to be a lawyer who's trying to transform the status quo, you kind of have to be a traitor. Like they talk about class traders. I think of myself as a professional trader. I want to use my knowledge of the law to demystify the law and make sure that everybody understands the powers with the people, not necessarily wield that kind of training to be like, we lawyers can fix it. Because what we're going to fix? Look at the Supreme Court. Right. Look at the judges. Like how are we going to fix anything? Right.
Thank you for that. I love to hear the behind the thoughts, the things behind what we're currently doing as to, what got us there. Jazz, you talked, and I love, Rena, the sharing of the family. I always talk about, my own family and my grandmother breaking the color barrier of nursing here in Boston and so forth. Because it's the cloth that we are from. And so, Jazz, you talked a little bit about, and we're going to dive a lot more deeply into it, about the phenomenal, just the huge, breadth of work that you have contributed your voice to. But Jazz, what is it that gives you this, unconditional commitment to the liberation of women? Where did that come from for you, Jazz?
So, yeah, that's a good question. I always say when I introduce myself, I come from generational poverty and generational incarceration. And so what that means is that I have 5 living generations in my family right now, and 4 out of the 5 we've had people either incarcerated or tussling with the criminal legal system, right, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's substance abuse, mental health issues, homelessness, and then also just like cash bail, right? So I already said that, but yeah. So many people in my family have been involved in the criminal legal system, and when you're involved in the criminal legal system, that affects how you earn wages, right? So poverty is also a part of my legacy. And right now, I call myself the cycle breaker. So I know that education is one way to break out of poverty. So I was the first one to graduate high school in 4 generations in my family, the first one in 4 generations to graduate college. And now I earned my master's in project management this past spring. So now the first with a master's degree in 5 generations. So, and I also have 2 daughters. I have a granddaughter. And what happened to me and why I landed in prison, I do not ever want to see that happen to them, you know? And so it is just essential that my voice, my expertise, whatever you want to call it, my story, my passion, my commitment, be uplifted and move in the directions of change and liberation, because women are underserved. We're overlooked, we're underserved. And then there's also just lack of understanding of what women actually face when they're incarcerated.
And mothers.
Yeah.
Like you
Especially,
were.
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
What we endure while we're incarcerated, and then what happens when we come home. There's absolutely no resources for us to heal that trauma, because that's what it is trauma.
And we say when, we have a governor in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts right now, Rena, you may know this, maybe have heard us screaming about it, who has just increased the budget from a $50 million. We've been in a 4.5-year fight to stop a new women's prison, put those resources into community. The governor is proposing now $360 million. And when you say that to us, we're literally saying hell no. Because when you tell us as formerly incarcerated women that, and this is the very same prison that Jasmine did her time in, that you're planning on building a new women's prison, when you say that to us, we have daughters, we have granddaughters, and so there's just absolutely no way that we are going to allow this to happen. So Jasmine, thank you also for sharing, what gives you the drive, what instilled that fire in you to do the work that you do. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to ask Rena, can you define cash bail for us? This
Yeah.
This episode is about bail and why we need to end cash bail. But can you define it for us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question, because really we're in an era where people just say anything. Like everybody's talking about cashless bail, which is a fully made up term. So
right. It's a
very much
buzzword
appreciate
now.
you, girl. And I started working in policy in 2016, working on New York's bail reform that got passed in 2020. And it was like the ops for that just made that term up, and now we're acting like it's a real term. So thank you, Andrea, for inviting some rigor into the conversation, because this is very important. Cash bail is quite literally just the idea that a judge could ask you to give money to secure your freedom. This is before you have been convicted of anything. It is shortly after you've been arrested. So at this point, it's just a very thin accusation, cop's word versus your word, basically. And you go before the judge, and the judge can say, you can go home and come back to your next trial, your next court date. And that's kind of pretrial freedom. The judge can say, I'm going to set $1,000 bail. If you can make that bail, then you can go home. If you can't make that bail, that's a cash bail. You're going to wait until anything is proven against you in a cage. That's cash bail. Or there's an option that happens very rarely. That's like remand. But what I always say when I'm talking about bail is that we really need to remember that the whole concept of cash bail was only created to exist as collateral. So it was not supposed to be a mechanism to keep people in. It was supposed to be a mechanism to say, okay, what's a little bit of skin you can put in the game so that we make sure that you come to court, that you don't flee. It is only in the last kind of 40 years that it has been perverted into this thing that we do, that we set an amount of cash bail that people cannot afford as a way to kind of trick the system into punishing them before they've been convicted of anything. So we set a cash bail amount that people cannot afford so that they are forced to wait for their court date, which can be months or years in jail, versus waiting for their court date at home in their life and just coming to court to adjudicate their issue. So that's what cash bail is. It used to be collateral. Now it's just a way that we criminalize poverty and tell people, unless you're rich enough to afford to pay this, you're going to be in a cell before anything has really been proven against you.
And has people have this notion that it has any, credence to public safety when you have folks who could, have $1 million in their pocket and be a very dangerous person, so to speak. And because they are able to pay a bail, they can pay that bail and they can get out. And
Absolutely.
So it's hard for me to say anything adverse to anybody who's facing any kind of entanglement in the criminal law system. But I've been to prison, and I grew up where I still live. My family's been here for 5 generations, in the most incarcerated corridor in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I know that there are some people that cause harm. There are some people that will continue to cause harm, not ever, though, going to get the help that they need to become healthy, healing people who no longer hurt people through the current criminal law system. And that system is what the bail process is a part of. So you can have some folks who aren't going to get any help, who are going to be thrust into the criminal law system, and they're going to have money to pay a bail. And they're going to pay it, and they're going to get out. So it doesn't even make sense when you're talking about making people pay for their freedom who have not even been found guilty of anything yet. It's just an accusation, as you said, that is so deeply troublesome about this.
And Andrea, I'll just add to that. It's like bail, because it's been such a scapegoat, I think, starting from the far right. We often see folks kind of trying to use crime and crime hysteria as a way to consolidate power. And then at that moment, they try to scapegoat or villainize certain reforms and say this is why people are unsafe. So because bail has been so popular as a scapegoat, it is, I think, one of the most studied policy interventions of my lifetime. And there is so much data that shows that there is no correlation between bail reform and pretrial freedom and increase in crime or increase in violence or increase in safety. Brookings just did a huge study that looked at 33 cities over a long period of time, studied cities that did reform, studied cities that didn't, and said that there is just no link between bail reform and pretrial freedom or increases in crime or increases in violence. The same is true in New York. They studied and studied and studied. They commissioned 3 different governmental studies, all of which shown that virtually nobody released because of the reforms was rearrested on any type of serious or violent accusation in that amount of time that they were out pretrial. So there's not a shortage of receipts to back up everything that you just said, which was just truth. But the narrative is so unhinged from any type of facts or data that it's hard to make people aware of the fact that it's just not true that pretrial freedom makes us less safe.
That's huge. That's huge. Jasmine, you run a bail fund, the Massachusetts Bail Fund.
I help.
Okay, you help. Yes, you help. I know. I get it. We work in teams. Jazz, I don't know if you know, but 100 years ago, when the Massachusetts Bail Fund was first started, Llewellyn Lambros and I went around with our hat in our hand with your founder at all these little backyard gatherings, barbecues out in the suburbs, out in places where people were wealthier, and talked about why we needed a bail fund. And to see all that you and John Rave and folks have done since then is just amazing. What is a bail fund?
Yeah, so a little backstory about the bail fund. We've been around since 2013. And like Andrea mentioned, we were a volunteer organization that was created by some social workers and activists and lawyers. just really starting to understand what pretrial detention means in Massachusetts and who is actually being impacted by cash bail, right? So we know that is Black, brown, queer, trans people, and those struggling with being unhoused and also struggling with mental health issues. So from there, the organization grew. And in 2019, we hired our first staff person. Now we're a staff of 5 with a handful of volunteers. We used to be statewide organization, but now we are specifically in 5 counties. And in those counties, we see most Black, brown, trans, queer people being impacted by cash bail and needing us to be in those counties. And they include Suffolk County, where Boston is, obviously South Bay and Nashua Street Jail. And we're also in Worcester, Hampden, Essex, and Middlesex County. So we are also freeing women from Framingham and the men from Billerica. We pay up to $1,000 per individual, not case. One thing about Massachusetts is that bail is a renewable source for our bail fund. And what that means is that when the case is done, we get the money back. If it wasn't forfeited illegally, or if there wasn't any revocations or any new cases, you guys know how that goes. Yeah. And I would also say that the trajectory of the bail fund was we weren't always abolitionists, right? There was some risk assessments happening, and we came together as an organization and was like, actually risk assessments don't work, and we actually need to be providing cash bail support for everyone, not just like who might go back to court and who might not. So now we are abolitionists. We don't adhere to who is deserving of cash bail and who is not. We are literally living by our motto, free them all. Yeah. And then.
Well, what are some of the challenges, Jazz? Like, we've heard about the challenges. I mean, we're going to dive a little deeper into the current president's most recent challenge to the places that have eliminated cash bail, but in a place like our state of Massachusetts, like, what are the challenges that you face to continue to have a bail fund?
Yeah, so there's obviously political repression happening across the country against bail funds. Right now in Massachusetts, we live in a blue state, right? Progressive in a manner, but we are also a state that is constantly trying to grow our dangerousness hearing statute. It's constantly being presented in every legislative session. Like, let's hold more people, and typically more people are Black and brown people on dangerousness hearings, right? And then we're also just facing just having bail being forfeited without forfeiture hearings, right? So if somebody doesn't show up to court, there's a motion for a warrant, and then there's supposed to be a forfeiture hearing for the bail specifically. Out right now, judges are doing away with that in certain counties and district courts, and are just forfeiting the bail. And that means that the bail fund cannot get it back. So now we are tasked with getting our money back, putting in motions, and trying to say, actually, what you're doing is ethically wrong. There should be a hearing. We should have a chance to fight for our money back. So there's always that aspect of what's happening against us. And then, our political alignment, right? Some people have a very hard time with our politics. We free everyone despite crime or alleged crime, right? Because they're presumed innocent. We stand with Black liberation. We stand with the decolonization of land. So we stand with Palestine and Gaza and Puerto Rico and Sudan, all of that. And some people have a really hard time with those types of politics. So we've lost donors, we've lost funding.
Which is just happening anyway
everywhere,
in
right?
the criminal law space. You know, we're all in this struggle. And it's so true with the dangerousness hearings. I was just in the local Roxbury District Court, and that's literally become default for bail, right? It's like, okay, we're going to get you on a probation violation, and we're going to say we need to have a dangerousness hearing.
And I would just add that we're also facing a difficulty of information, right? Like getting accurate information so that we can do the best to post bail for people safely with immigration concerns, right? So we've had people being kidnapped out of jail lobbies, courthouses, outside of the jails, inside the jails. And that is because of the Trump administration and
Yep.
now that lack of information pipeline where we can't get accurate information on the person that is in custody. And, you know, some people just don't want to share their status, right? And they shouldn't have to,
Right.
you know?
Right. How many, Rena, are we talking about here across the country? People who, you know, just find themselves stuck in jail. Like, are we talking a few people? Are we talking hundreds of thousands of people?
Yeah, hundreds of thousands. At its peak a few years ago, it was on any given day, there was 500,000 people that were in jail pretrial. So that's like 500,000 people that just have, like we said, just this barest of accusation against them. And the vast majority of them, if they had a nominal amount of money to a lot of people, $500, $600, whatever, they could be free. So it's a massive issue. And it disproportionately impacts, like Jasmine was saying, different communities, right? Like Black people are way overrepresented. Latinx folks are way overrepresented. Folks from poor and working class communities, way overrepresented. 80% of the women in jail are mothers. It's a hugely impactful
80%
policy.
of women in jail are mothers.
Are mothers,
yeah,
yes.
And that speaks volumes about the level of disruption.
Exactly, and the generational consequences that are happening. Again, like I am an abolitionist. I don't think we can incarcerate or punish our way out of our problems. I know we wish that we could, but the reality is that we can't. But you do not need to be an abolitionist to recognize that it is deeply unjust that you are now doing generational amounts of harm before anything has been proven against this person. Anything. Based on what a cop said, cops, you don't have to be an abolitionist to understand that cops lie so frequently that there's an academic term called testifying, which means cops lying under oath. And you can look it up on Google Scholar. You will find hundreds of academic articles. So that's something that we just know to be true. This is not a group of people who are known for being credible or honest. And we are basically taking their word, unverified, to rip people out of their homes, start child policing system cases against them because no one's watching their kid, lose their job, lose their rent. And when you think about the fact that that's obviously disproportionately happening in Black communities, brown communities, working class communities, it's just a massive injustice that I do not think it should be hard for us to find consensus on. You guys mentioned the dangerousness hearings. A lot of people don't know what that means. They sound fine, right? It's like a judge decides whether or
just
not
the name. I mean, the name should be deemed
dangerous.
Unconstitutional.
Exactly. Dangerous enough to be out in the community. We have a constitutional right to be presumed innocent. That is a constitutionally enshrined right. We cannot pretend that we are affording people that right and putting them in a cage before anything is proved against them, whether or not a judge finds them dangerous. And to Andrea's point, yes, obviously there are some people that are that cause harm or can be causing harm. And there's different ways that we can think about getting at that. But I just do not think giving on pretrial detention as a solution to that is something that makes sense or is fair or is just, especially when you think about the fact that judges are predominantly white, predominantly men. Who looks dangerous to them? What appears to be jeopardizing public safety? It might be very different than something that you or I would think is as dangerous or harmful. So it's just like we are, we have so many things in the criminal legal system that sound okay on their face, but when you really experience them, like some of you have, or if you really sit in courtrooms and see them, it is literally just racism and classism and over again. You're brown, you're poor, it's looking a little iffy. And the risk assessments, it's like you don't have a good phone number because you're unhoused. We should probably you up. What does that have to do with public safety? So yeah, I just think I really feel frustrated at how much we are forced, those of us who do this work, to have a conversation about public safety and try to justify these reforms on the basis of public safety, when at the end of the day, these people are presumed innocent.
Right.
period. And nobody cared, to your point, Andrea, if you were accused of doing the most heinous thing. Nobody cared if you were rich enough to make a $2 million bail and you rate your trial at home. That was not an issue. No one was changing laws because of that.
Right.
But then when we decided that poor people probably should just be able to wait their cases at home, brown people, immigrants should probably be forced to await their trials at home. Now we have to have a whole conversation about, oh my goodness, but public safety, but dangerousness. And it's getting my
it's
goat.
further away from forcing the conversation about the harms of incarceration.
Yes.
It just gives us, I mean, you spoke to it, but it just drops another, thing in the way of having the conversation about why we don't believe in prisons, and for all of those reasons, they cause further harm.
Yeah. I would just like to add that, like, most of our people are sitting in pretrial jails, right, for crimes of poverty, right? Because they can't afford, they can't afford to eat, they can't afford to live somewheres. They might be struggling with substance uses, right? They're struggling with mental health issues, crimes of poverty, right? So in Massachusetts, we have the case law, Bring-In versus Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where the Commonwealth ruled that cash bail should be implemented based on somebody's affordability, be able to pay the bail. We have people that we bail on a $1 bail, right? So what does affordability mean? What does that actually mean? If the person cannot afford a $1 bail, definitely not going to be able to afford a $50,000 bail. And why are we issuing bail? Like, that could have been a personal recognizance. They could have went to a program. Like, there are so many other alternatives outside of cash bail.
Absolutely.
That is such a great point that you just made, Jazz, because it also just speaks to, we talk about this issue with housing as well, and they use the term affordability, but, affordable housing, but that has a whole life of its own. It's not housing that's affordable, right? And it's like, so you talk about a bail, and there are those stipulations. It's not necessarily to keep somebody in. There's these criteria, at least here in Massachusetts, that you're checking the boxes to see. And even that, they still will place a bail, and it could be $1, and somebody cannot pay $1 bail. So, what are we doing here? What is the future now with first of all, Rena, let me ask you a question to help kind of drag me back to law school a little bit. I hate to do it to you, but I want to get some clarity around this, because Trump has just announced an executive order to wipe away the progress that some states have made to eliminate cash bail. Can he do that? And can he do it? I mean, is there what happened to states' rights? Like, all of a sudden, isn't that funny? All of a sudden now, we're the ones arguing for states' rights, right?
We never thought there would be a day that you would be a states' rights advocate.
But can he do that?
Yes and no. It is very unlike what Trump is saying that he's going to do is basically say, I am going to withhold federal funding from states that have cashless bail statutes. Because as many people might not know, the vast majority of when we talk about our criminal justice system, it happens at the state level. Very, very small percentage of it happens at a federal level. There's certainly a big, powerful federal criminal legal system, but the vast majority of people that going through this system are going through it based on state laws, state courts, state prosecutors, state actions. So that is a state rights issue. It's why, depending on where you get arrested, you might be subject to a whole host of different laws, mandatory minimums, bail reforms. What Trump is saying is he's saying, I'm going to withhold federal funding as a punishment for the people who don't change. Exactly, like a carrot. I don't know. It's already being challenged in court. I don't, the same way that it's who knows what Trump can and can't do, because he seems like he's going to do whatever. Who knows what precedent or what kind of the law can and will protect these days, because we have an increasingly weak federal judiciary and we have an extraordinarily weak Supreme Court. So it's more and more like the law is whatever Trump wants it to be. But technically, no, he could not force those laws and there's a gray area to whether or not he can kind of dangle that carrot.
We have seen the carrot and the stick. I mean, that's where we got
We
to
have.
1994 crime act.
Exactly. That's not a new thing for like the federal government to try to influence what happens on the state level, and it almost always happens in the direction of harshness. It very rarely are they incentivizing people to free more people and let more people out. So I think it is a really important moment. Even though Democrats have historically also not been great on criminal legal reform and toughness, it is a moment for those elected officials who hold themselves out as being resistant to some of the more repressive actions of President Trump to stand by their criminal legal reforms as an important kind of battleground. Because I think what I keep telling people about pretrial detention is like, it's perhaps one of the most important rights anybody could have in our criminal legal system. And if you feel nervous about this administration pumping billions and trillions of dollars into all different types of law enforcement, and there's less and less transparency over who's getting detained for what and where, and the amount of things that seem that people are subject to arrest for, whether it be protests, whether it be choosing what to do with their body, is getting broader and broader. You need to be very invested in pretrial freedom. You need to be very invested if you get arrested by some masked guy at a protest, feeling like you have an option for somebody to come to court and post bail, or for the judge to let you go and for you to figure out what's going on at home, versus no option of that, and that you're trying to figure out what's happening in some cage somewhere. It's an issue that is going to impact more and more of us under this administration. We can't just continue to say, I care about that for other people, but it doesn't have to do with me. It's about to have to do with many, many, many of us.
Yeah. Where do we go, Jazzy, to protect what we have? Have you been thinking about that as a bail fund?
Yeah.
How are we going to, I mean, you guys, we don't have, we have bail in Massachusetts.
Right.
So maybe all of these weird ironies that are happening now, like we have bail. Is that a saving grace for us now?
I know.
Right? Well, where do we go with this to protect our people?
Yeah, I think, one of the things MBF has been able to do is really like analyze pretrial detention, cash bail, and can we end cash bail in Massachusetts? And right now, MBF's sitting at the crux of, no, we can't. Because if we do go that route, all the other pretrial mechanisms are going to balloon, right? And what I mean by pretrial mechanisms, social control mechanisms, I'm talking about dangerousness hearings, forfeitures, warrants, GPSs, civil commitments, and probation violations, parole violations, right? All of those other mechanisms are going to balloon. And they have since 2018 in Massachusetts, starting with dangerousness and GPS shackles in Essex County and Suffolk County.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So our strategy is...
We call them ankle shackles.
Yeah. So our strategy is knowing this, right? Cash bail exists. Let us continue to have our doors open and free as many people as we can while we do the political education, while we do the grassroots organizing around these other mechanisms, and telling people this is happening, disproportionately happening to our people, and what can we do about it together? So keeping us safe is kind of like educating our community and being in community and creating roles and kind of like safety roles, like especially like with crimmigration, like we've had so many people being so concerned and wanting to help, like how do we help our people? How do we save them? How to keep them not being kidnapped? Like, what are we doing? And I think it's just really, unfortunately, we are always called to provide the thing that the state or the federal government is taking away from us.
We do a hyperlocal organizing model called Reimagining Communities. And ironically, I don't know where, who knows? I don't know. But the prison project in Massachusetts, the building of this new women's prison, has been referred to as Reimagining Framingham.
Oh, my God, yes.
So
the co-optation is real.
The co-optation is real. But, we will continue. And I think it's conversations like this that help people to truly understand more what these issues are. It's the whole purpose of the FreeHer podcast is to just have a moment, to have a conversation that helps people to, everyday, regular schmegular people to think about these issues and to define some of these things, understand what they mean, and what it means towards the liberation of our people, and why even the liberation of our people still is a thing. I want to just give each of you a moment. Just is there something else that you wanted to just tell us about or just mention before we wrap on this issue? You both are full of just amazing information. What you bring to this work, I'm so grateful for, so that we can continue this work no matter what. It's folks like you that will make sure that we gonna figure it out no matter what. We were just talking about this, as our funding has gone completely south on us. Listen, we started this in a prison yard. If we have to go back to selling dishcloths on the corner with pictures of the women, like, we're trying to bring her home. Could you buy a dishcloth for $2? Listen, we've been there before, been there, done that. And we will do whatever we have to do to continue this work around ending incarceration of women and girls and the liberation of our people overall. But what say you as a parting, thought for our listeners? I'll throw it out to either one of you.
I guess I'll just end with something that you brought up earlier, which was like, this conversation prevents us from having the real conversation, which is like the conversation about the harms of jail and pretrial detention. And the reason why there have been such incredible gains in the pretrial reform movement, from like 2015 to like 2023 is because people started hearing stories about what that really looks like. They heard the stories of someone like Kalief Browder, who's 16 years old, on Rikers for 3 years on accusation of stealing a backpack. The case was dismissed. He was found not guilty, but what he underwent during those 3 years broke him in ways that he was unable to fix, and he took his own life. The story of Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland was only incarcerated because of pretrial detention. And had there not been pretrial detention, she could have been home and she might be alive right now. Don't enter the conversation from the conversation that the ops want us to enter in, which is all about crime, hysteria, and safety. Just stick to what you know, that it is wrong to lock people up because they can't afford their freedom, and that the cost of locking people up is often their lives. And that is why bail reform is and will always be a good thing.
Take us home, Jazz.
Yeah, I was just going to echo the same thing. I mean, 1 day in jail, 2 hours in jail in a lockup is too much. People are dying in lockup. People are dying in our jails in Massachusetts, right? And the sheriffs and their COs and their medical staff are not being held accountable. We are losing people to the inadequacies of the jail, right? And people shouldn't have to suffer harm like that because they cannot afford cash bail. And we cannot continue to incarcerate people and think that that's the only answer when it's not. And our people, our communities have the answers. $360 million would help our people to fund those answers in Massachusetts.
Thank you for both of those parting comments. The fact that we have people, and our love and prayers still go out to the families of those we've lost due to being held pretrial and the atrocities exacted upon them during those experiences. It's happening still. I want to say thank you to both of you for coming on and helping us to break this issue apart. We could talk about it more, and we probably will invite you guys to come back. It's really important to have women such as yourselves who are on the front lines. I look forward to seeing you guys on the front line, to continue to see you guys and to be together in this work with you. I'm very, very honored to be able to do this work with both of you. Let's keep going. It's not always easy, but this is why I cherish these moments when we, even though it's, virtual and, but it helps me to remember that we're not alone in the work that we're doing over here. You're not alone in the work that you guys are doing. And let's keep using our voices and our experiences to create the change that we need to see. So, and also,
Thank you.
of course, to end the incarceration of women and girls.
Amen.
But everybody else. Thank
Thank
you
you
both.
so much.
Thank you.
It was nice meeting you, Rena.